Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. A reminder, as always, that there is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about these markets. But welcome, guys. Happy Thursday, coming into near the end of our week. Obviously, we've still got another trading day after this, but Bitcoin is, still more or less doing the exact same thing that it's been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? Just kind of chopping. We come into range highs, we reject. You keep trying along the breakout, you're getting wrecked. You're trying to short for a breakdown of this uptrend, you're getting wrecked. So really, I forgot who said it, before we went live, but it's kind of like a total leverage trader death at the moment, which is, by design. I think that's a feature, not a bug at this point. But not to ignore the current structure on Bitcoin, right? Which does look like almost like a beach ball underwater as I'm observing the structure right now. And I'm sure, it's not anything that people haven't seen before, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people have these lines drawn on our chart, but we're going to break down some potential scenarios for you guys, as well as anything else that we're seeing in the markets, throughout this show. But as you guys know, I'm Snorlax, also known as Tommy. I'm joined by Tucker and the usual cast and crew of characters. We've still got some stragglers from yesterday's macro session where we were talking about CPI. We're still we're still joined by Jerome Powell, President Bowden, and we even have a special guest appearance from Caroline from FTX. So I'm looking forward to getting everybody's thoughts and opinions on Bitcoin, of course, and the charts as well today. But before we can do that, guys, before we can start sharing that big juicy alpha, I'm gonna ask you guys if you can kindly smash that like button. And it's Thursday. We're getting into the end of the week. I know you guys got it in you to be able to smash that like button. And so maybe I don't have to bug you again later on the show, right? Maybe we don't have to look at soybeans, but also you guys kind of like the soybean chart now. So we're kind of going to have to diversify our portfolio of commodities that we'd like to troll you guys with. But it's like I said, Bitcoin is grinding up towards the highs. We're kind of just waiting on a decision, chop. Are we going to break out imminently? Are we just going to keep grinding higher, or are we eventually going to, rotate back towards those range lows? In that scenario, that would probably be a total altcoin death. And that's, not something that we necessarily would want to see either. But yeah, a lot of indecision in the market right now. And some of that is driven by equity markets, right? And I wouldn't say that there is, people are going to cite an elevated inflation print, perhaps, is why we're seeing weakness in legacy. But the reality is, momentum has been kind of weakening over the last few weeks. A pullback of some kind is not really that surprising over in equity land, especially with how low and deep value you were seeing volatility get. But as we're going to talk about today, I'm sure things like the dollar, other risk proxies still, to me, still favor that we're not going to see definitely not any sort of top, right? But as far as like downtrends go, ranging goes, I think Will said it best yesterday. It's like, it's hard to even call it a downtrend because it probably more just be a range or like a flag, right? Especially on the S&P, which is hovering right above the all-time high and really not showing any measurable weakness outside of the last few days. At the same time, though, I mean, we've been talking about it. There's plenty of opportunity within the altcoin market. Ordinal meme coins I see are popping off. You have select meme coins on a chain kind of popping off every single day. Yeah, the volume and activity has kind of slowed down a little bit, but if you look hard enough, there's definitely enough dispersion within the crypto market still to be able to identify those opportunities. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of those as well. But I'm going to open up the floor, guys. Would love to get what y'all are seeing on the markets. Obviously, we are still kind of, just chopping up in what looks like a pretty textbook pennant. I don't really adhere to like textbook TA patterns, but I do clearly see this one, and I have to imagine that they're just going to keep chopping up breakout traders for the time being. So what are you guys seeing in your interpretation of the market?
Look, I was told there was free ice cream if I came in here today. I don't see the free ice cream, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and bail. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
I think we're going to lose Mr. President. We did.
Oh,
Mr. President. But we do still have Caroline, fortunately, who is speaking in the place of Dr. Will's Outlook today. So I'm sure we'll get some interesting opinions over on that front later in the stream. But Jackus, Tucker, what are we seeing in the markets today?
well, I had a question for Will whether he eats that ice cream with a fork or a spoon, but maybe Caroline can answer that later on. What are we seeing in the market? We are seeing that the market is just being brutally chopped, which we did anticipate, and it's erecting people in both directions, basically frustrating them with this chop where nothing is really happening. You know, people want the action and it's not coming. It's not coming for the downside. It's not coming for the upside. So that's what's going on currently. And there really is no cure for that. You just have to sit it out. And you can have fun on the 30-second chart, though. There's action there.
Oh, I believe it.
So, is there any possibility I can get a hold of the chart? I know it's asking a lot.
There you go.
But, you know,
Cook.
we gotta
Cook. Sorry, Tom.
I'll let you cook, Will. Have you shared your screen yet? Yeah. He pulled a me.
No. By the way, guys, what just happened is that I pulled a Tome on a Tome by pulling a Will chart.
40 chess.
Yeah.
So this is something I talked about. It's definitely hard to always tell people to like, hey, this is the thing right here. Can you point this out? But I think this is the hard part, that, and this is something like I go through on a regular basis. It's just trying to find out, you know, what has happened here and where your flips happen. Now, down here at the lows, roughly, and this is where a lot of people messed up, right? They didn't take this range, 1-2 taps, right? This support range that was created, and use it as support over here, right? They looked at this and they're like, oh, we got to come down and fill this FEG or this random thing. That no, none of that mattered. You have to use your number one thing in TA is always your support and your resistance, right? Your support and resistance have more validity than every other pattern across the board. They have more validity than FEGs. They have more validity than strength. They have more validity than everything. And so once you've tapped into support, you need to take the situation a lot more seriously and be like, all right, I need to be buying. And this is kind of like, and I didn't buy here. I want to be adamant about that, because I wanted to see kind of the same scenario that happened here kind of happen over here to show that strength. And you could see it exactly did, because almost if you took this whole range here and flipped it upside down, that's what you got here, right? Granted, you had a little bit more overextension here, but you had your double tap, right? You had your retest of resistance after the first one. Again, you had your retest of resistance. Granted, this one was a little deeper. Again, history rhymes, but it never repeats. So rhyming means it just has to be similar. It doesn't mean it has to be exactly the same. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up. But you have 1-2 taps. You have 1-2 taps here. You have 1-2 taps here. You have essentially, well, you do have 1-2 here with a deviation, right? Now, a lot of people thought this was the deviation of this, right? So they were looking at this as an overextension that would come back and rebalance back into here. But that was never going to happen, because once you started getting into these price ranges here, you were looking at these ranges over here. And this is where everybody kind of lost the plot. They were looking at this rather than looking to the left, which gives you all your price history going into a price zone, right? So you always want to pay attention to your price zones and price history on previous action within the market. And your biggest price zone was right in here, right? This is where the most activity occurred. Not here, even though people were looking for here. And so all you had to do was understand your high, which is exactly where we touched, right? Exactly where we touched, right into the high, rejected, and then came back for the low. Now, typically when I'm looking at these ranges, I'm like, okay, what's going on here with price? I need to be 10% off the high or 10% off the low for my bid. That's the way I always take these. I never take the full range. Upside you kind of can because you can expect overextension, but downside in a bull run, you should expect they're going to scalp you out of your low, right? They're going to keep you from getting that position. And again, this is the weekly time frame. So if we were to take this right here and we were to draw down 10%, boom, look at this. It would have brought us all the way back into here. So the reality is from this position here, well, technically we'll go from here, right? Where was your 10% marker from your pullback? It was right into the range of where we hit. So your 10% marker here was right into the range of where we hit. We then subsequently started building long. And again, nobody believed it, right? Nobody want. Look, you even had this candle close and people still didn't want to believe you were going to get the breakout. They thought this was going to be a double rejection. You're not going to come in, wick, then fill the wick, then open the subsequent candle right here and not continue forward. It's just not going to happen. Like if they would not have filled this wick right here, then sure, you can expect this thing to maybe reject. But this was a full fill on the weekly. It was a full fill. So because they got the full fill here, it means that all shorts that were built up here are out. There's no shorts anymore. Think of it like a lot of this wick to the upside as them like clearing out shorts, right? They're basically clearing out the bearish sentiment. So they know there's going to be a lot of sell pressure here. And so what do? They range, push in, all these people sell, and then they come right back up again. There's no more sellers. They cleared them all, right? That's how you clear shorts. That's how you clear bearish sentiment in a sense. So once they were able to achieve that, price could then continue up, right? Now, again, a lot of people here, same thing. Look, cleared shorts, ran down, ran up. People are missing the plot again, right? What did they do here? They got up here, ranged a little bit, cleared shorts, pulled back into the range. And what are they doing? Slowly building back up, right? Now, that doesn't mean we can't come up and clear shorts again because, hey, maybe there's a second round of shorts, right? You get a double tap high here. So maybe they run this one more time somewhere over here, like something like this, right? Get all the shorts out. And this fractal right here is from this move right here. I literally just took this as a fractal, dropped it in right here. And if this were to occur, it's going to be a swing high. It's going to be swing high here. People are going to think this is forming, right, with the higher high over here. They're going to think this is forming over here. They're going to reject it. They're not going to give you below 60. They're going to give you the higher low structure here. And then they're going to cook you. They're going to absolutely cook you because you're going to be full short here. You're going to be expecting this swing when in reality it's going to be for a reversal. And a lot of people are not understanding the momentum of the move here. They're just not getting it. And this is why, like, I talk a lot on the show. I don't usually show a lot of charts. I do cook when I try to show charts. But like I already know what my expectations are. A lot of people are still trying to figure out what their expectations are of this move. And this is just the reality of things. Like again, so when I talked about a failed swing yesterday, this is what I meant. Everybody's looking at this, so everybody's max long, right? What do they do if price continues to cook here and then starts to break down, right? And then breaks out and then really breaks down? Everybody's going to be confused. They're going to be like, dude, this thing's cooked. It's retested this high multiple times. It's going to reverse. They're going to be looking for the reversal and price is going to shoot out. It's the same thing they did here. Everybody looked for the breakout, got the breakout, got the rejection. They're like, oh, this stuff's coming all the way back here and filling. When in reality, it was just coming back to support, right? It was just coming back to support. And once it found support, it reversed. Price is going to do the same thing up here, in my opinion. It's going to literally cook sideways. This is what I mean by sideways. Chop shorts and longs, kill everybody who's trying to leverage, and then rip. They are not going to let you get this leverage position, guys. Like people that keep longing for this leverage position, you're not getting it. They're going to keep chopping you up until you've lost all your money and then you have no money to leverage anymore. And then they're going to rip. And you're going to feel pretty stupid when that happens.
I will say I don't think that every altcoin is going to wait on Bitcoin to break from the range before it goes. I think you're already seeing that right now in a few select sectors. And really, that's been the case over the last probably 2 weeks as well. There's always just been kind of like one sector. And yeah, it hasn't really been like they haven't really been super sustainable pumps, right? They've mostly been like hot ball of money type of things, with the exception of maybe something like ENA. But a lot of these altcoins are, kind of taking the onus amongst themselves to begin climbing higher even before Bitcoin. So I think like, even though I agree with you that catching this Bitcoin breakout is going to be really painful for a lot of people who try to do it, but altcoins can paint clearer pictures in the meantime and potentially still provide that upside volatility without, all the shenanigans.
Yeah, all altcoins are the better beta, in my opinion. Like I'm just gonna come out and say it, whether people are laser eyed or not. I don't care. What your preference is. When you're behind the closed doors, at the end of the day, this is an asset, right? You're here to make money. You're not here to like hold some kind of weird stance or be like, oh, I'm trying to say F the government. Well, then you can do it in a lot better ways than throwing your money into some random coin that some random dude named Satoshi made. There's other ways that you can avoid government overall, overall oversight. But the thing here that people just they're not understanding is like this is something we talked about in the bottom of the bear, Tommy, was round bottoms, right? They always look at the structure, they don't understand like what a round bottom is, and then they don't understand what a round top is, right? And if you get a round top after a round bottom, it's more than likely going to be a reversal, right? It's like this weird S pattern that ends up playing to the upside. We can even call it a W, right? And that's what price is. And this is a bullish W, by the way, too, because you got the price action moving to the upside, not the double test of the bottom. Usually, a lot of people talk about a double bottom being very bullish. That would be like if Bitcoin were to do this, and that's what a lot of people are expecting, right? Their expectation was this. It's even more bullish because Bitcoin did this. It's even more bullish. Now, can everybody identify these patterns? No, this takes a long time. I'm going to be honest, like a really long time to be able to identify these type of patterns within a chart. And a lot of people just don't get it. You not only had the W pattern here, before you got the W, you had the market telling you this was a reversal. You had it telling you it was a reversal by this bull div right here. On big assets, bull divs are important. On shit assets, small liquidity assets, bull divs can mean absolutely jack shit. And I'll show you the difference between the two. So Bitcoin's a big asset. It's a solid asset that people like. And so I expect bull divs to play very well with that, right? So bull div, boom, that was your reversal. We talked about this in the bottom of the bear too. This isn't hindsight shit for me. Like it's hindsight for other people, but like this is something that for me was a very strong indicator that hey, we're probably going to reverse. Not to mention, my target price, and I'll come out and say it, was roughly in this range. But I'm not stupid. Like the second we start getting close to that range, I'm already starting to buy, right? This is your DCA down position now. So like no matter how far Bitcoin gets, once I hit certain liquidity zones, I start to add. And I don't care about whether I go all in here like a lot of normies do, right? And when I say normies, I mean people that always like, oh, I'm gonna throw my whole bag in at 14K. I'm gonna throw my whole bag in at 12K. Those people, because they don't understand the strategy. The strategy is always to be dialing in when you're near your low. It's not to be dialing in when you're at your low. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong because they're trying to dial in at their price target rather than towards it. because me dialing in here, even if we would have got to here, my price average here would have been amazing, knowing that the next cycle bottom is probably going to be somewheres up here, right? And that's the difference between dialing in here and starting to dial in towards your low versus like trying to be like, oh, I need to time the bottom. Timing the bottom, just for those who don't understand what timing the bottom means, it means you're coming into a market and you're trying to pick the exact price and come all in at that price. That's timing the bottom, right? DCAing the bottom is coming in, realizing you're near your average low, you're near it, and you need to start dialing into that position going into that low. And maybe you achieve your price, maybe you don't. Always let the market decide. That way you're not fighting the market. You always want to be on the side of your thesis going into a market low. Up here, you were not trying to buy. I told people up here, I'm like, don't buy anything up here. And this was before we even broke here. This was like when we were over here. I was telling people like, this is not a buy because this will not hold. I'm like, this right here has already been tested. It's already coming back down. This is what is this sign right here, Tommy? What is that sign right there?
Which one specifically?
Yeah, I'll give you guys an example.
Oh, McDonald's.
All right, I'll give you an example. Never buy a McDonald's sign. Okay? Never buy a McDonald's sign. Once you saw this and you got to hear this was turning into a McDonald's sign. All right. This is the alpha of the day. You never buy McDonald's. If you own a franchise, I feel for you. You don't make any money at all. You're probably broke. But
Will, you don't think Apple's bottoming here?
well, no. Apple's a little bit different. We've talked about that. I think that Apple is a little bit different. I think that you can see right here by my box. I think that Apple is bottomed here, right? But for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, when I see a McDonald's sign, I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to be poor. So at that position, I'm just like, all right, I need to be out because this thing's probably cooked. Not to mention you had RSI strength following the same thing here, right? It was telling you the same signals that this right here was a deviation and that you were going to reverse. You were flat out going to reverse. A lot of people thought this was like, oh, just making room. No, it was cooked. And again, your biggest indication here, maybe you didn't get out up here. I got out pretty close to up here. You should have been trying to get out here. You should have taken the dead cat bounce, and this is what a dead cat bounce is right here. This is a dead cat bounce when everybody was calling for it down here, right? Like this is your dead cat bounce. It retests your low, it bounced back up, and then it rolled, right? And this right here is your flush. This is what a flush is. 1, 2, 3 month consecutive downtrend. That's a flush. That's a full quarter downtrend. And then you started to bleed into your low, right? I'm giving you guys the alpha. You started to bleed into your low. Once you start to bleed in, okay, I gave you the other indicators, the weekly time frames, so on and so forth. So you had your bull div, you started to bleed into your low, you've already created your flush, you can start buying here. This is a full buy zone, DCA. Let it run, DCA. But yeah, like this right here is the play, man. Like this thing is gonna exceed a lot of people's expectations. Again, a W exceeds its high by a lot, right? This right here is what I would say is probably your average, right? And you could probably take this right here and take this portion of the W and just put it up here, and I guarantee you get the same result, right? You could take this portion of the W, you could take this portion right here that I put up here. This is where I took the fractal from, was here to here, or you could even take from here to here. The moves are very similar, right? This is a 3 spurt move. Here's 1, right? And then here's 2. And then we're getting 3 currently, which is going to move up massively. I think just a lot of people they're not understanding like what's going on. They don't get it. But here's the thing. Nobody got it over here either. Once you started in this sprint mode, nobody understood what was going on anymore. And we're pretty much in this sprint mode. That's where we're at over here now. Your double tap low. Here's another one. I'll give you another indication. We'll remove all that. Here's another great indication. Here's your double bottom, right? Your double bottom, and then your breakout. Over here, look. Same exact thing right here. So here's your double bottom right here, and then breakout. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Whether people want to believe it or not, we're basically right in here right now, right in here, right? But your double bottom has already occurred. So since your double bottom has already occurred, and you could take this from the weekly, you could take this from the monthly, you're getting the same result here, right? You're getting the same result. Granted, you have to adjust a little bit. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, what about the week? The week never mattered. Use the bodies. Use the bodies. The bodies are the greatest indication of actual real price action. Wicks are simply just noise. That's all they are at the end of the day. So bodies, 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 right? We all know that song. But this right here is the play. So you double tap low and you go. You double tap low and you go. It is what it is. Hate it, love it, like it, whatever you like. This is the market we live in. And this is why I tell people, like, if you're selling here, you're making a really big mistake, right? It's like selling here before the actual move occurs. I mean, you guys can cut in on that. I've been talking a lot.
No, I'm letting you cook, Will. You're doing you're crushing it right now. I've been reading the comments. It's funny because they don't know that Hagrid is Tucker. They don't know the lore. But no, I agree with you, Will. I think that in the meantime that Bitcoin is kind of just chopping like this, altcoins are going to have very mixed results. It's like you said, you don't want to be buying the charts that are painting the McDonald's patterns. You want to be buying the charts that are clearly, in vertical accumulation or completely floored, right? And it does kind of seem like it is only a matter of time, especially when I'm looking at those high time frame momentum indicators that you've got up on the screen. The 1 month. I know we were even talking about the one on the 3 month as well a few weeks ago. Because I feel like Bitcoin in the context of like 3 month momentum looks like that Livermore cylinder textbook example of what a risk asset will do before it completely goes vertical, which is kind of maybe sounds ludicrous to say, given that Bitcoin is up thousands and thousands of multiples over the last, decade and a half. But I mean, it is like it does look like it's about to rapidly expand even out of like this logarithmic chart that you've got. Do you have logarithmic on? I can't even tell, but yeah, don't buy the McDonald's patterns. Those are distributive.
Like it's hard for a lot of people to comprehend this, but like if you were to turn like this M, for instance, upside down, you get a very similar pattern, right? Because you have the information here, but you have the W here. And the funny part is like that same W I drew out over here is the same W that happened over here during 2020. Look at it. It's literally the uptrending W, right? Again, you got the uptrending W following the same patterns. And then not only do you have the uptrending W here, you have the information high here into an uptrending W again here. Like this isn't rocket science. It's not. It's just pattern watching and pattern chasing and understanding when momentum is in your favor, right? Or even when a market has, pretty much bottomed. I think a lot of people have a hard time with understanding bottom. They feel like price has to come back and fill some kind of weird FVG or something. Like FVGs are great. They're great, right? They can get you a lot of great positions, but they're not guaranteed. That's always the problem. They're not guaranteed. At least not in the first run up. Like if we start filling or creating FVGs on the way up for Bitcoin, then I would wholeheartedly, believe at some point we're going to get the Mickey D's up here and this thing's going to come back down and fill those FVGs probably later. They don't have to fill right away. And this is the problem with these markets is they trick people into thinking that these FVGs have to be filled without telling them, hey, look at that. Boom. look at this. FVGs all filled much, much later than what a lot of people anticipated. They were expecting it to happen on the way up. They waited for it to happen for entries and never got their entries because they waited for the wrong things.
Listen, nothing is guaranteed in the markets, just market makers rectangular stop losses and McDonald patterns. I enjoyed Will cooking. Like every time we give him room, we give him the chart, he stops being the audience attacker and starts being the cookor, the cook, and he cooks very delicious meals. And I do agree, well, that FVGs are great. I mean, there's lots of great patterns, and what I've seen over the years by being in crypto or markets in general is that each time, there was a new meta. And like back then, it was RSI, MACDs, and Ichimokus, and it was fair value gaps, and then it was moving averages, and then it was order flow, and then it was funding, and all of that. And each time there is a new meta, and everyone's like, listen, this is it. With this new secret indicator, you are going to smash the markets. And the reality is that, like, yes, but no, because all of these are great, great tools, but it's important to realize they are just tools, right? And also, what's important to realize is that one tool set will work for some, but for all. And you wanna, like, from all the data that's out there that you can use, you wanna find those that work for you, that you feel like you see some edge in them, are able to work with them, because not everyone is able to work with order flow. And order flow is very advanced, but like some people will be okay doing moving averages, and some people will be doing okay doing RSI, and some people will work just like with FVGs. And I believe all of those provide great insights into the markets. And essentially, as Will said, nothing is a guarantee. It's just a tool. Doesn't mean that if market is oversold on some oscillator that it must bottom there. Doesn't mean that if there's a FVG it must get filled. Doesn't mean if there is equal highs or equal lows they must get swept. It's a probability, and that probability depends on the context, and that's what we are trying to tell you guys.
Yeah, I agree. Like, even for me, like, I switch up my strategy consistently depending on what type of environment we're in, right? And that's the difference, is being adaptable to markets versus trying to say this is the only strategy that works for every single portion of the market. Because I think when people say this is the only strategy that works for every single portion of the market, that's just false. Like, I have to at times use moving averages. I have to at times use EMAs over MAs. I have to at time use RSI and stochastic. I have to at times look for chart patterns. Like, I have to move with what the market gives me and use the most likely, thing or tool that I have available to me that looks like it's filling out the best. And so for me, this cycle, at least, like, the patterns have been key, man. Like, this pattern to this pattern is almost identical. The only difference is you had a much higher peak here than you had here. This is where everybody got it screwed, right? Everybody got messed up because they were looking for this big move and they thought this was this, when in reality, this was this. Look how muted that move was. Market makers absolutely tricked everybody here, right? They tricked everybody. Now, granted, some of you may be like, well, that's hindsight. I could tell you, like, Tommy's been here, all these guys have been here. Like, I was talking about this at 25K to 30K. I was like, this is the zone. They are not going to let this drop down like people think they are. They're going to run this up. And then after they ran it up to 40K, that's where I saw this start. I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually this. So you have your double tap low here, and then you had your peak was your peak here. It was just more muted, right? It was less upside than what people were expecting. But they should have expected this. Do people know why they should have expected this? Because more liquidity means a more muted move. There was less liquidity here, so a lot bigger move could occur here, right? There was more liquidity needed to push markets here, so you should have expected a more muted move here than what you got previous bear market bottom, right? Because the more liquidity it takes, the more muted the move will be. It's compounding 101. the higher market cap an asset gets, the less an asset becomes volatile, right? This is volatility. This is muted volatility. That's the difference between these two. And a lot of people don't understand that either, right? They don't understand compound. They don't understand like math. Look, I won't say math is everybody's cup of tea. I'm not going to come in and be an asshole. Like, I'm not going to say that. But I will say this, like, think of it like water. If you put water in a bucket, the more water you add to the bucket, the heavier it gets, right? And the heavier it gets, the harder it is to move that bucket. So, like, if I were to pick up a bucket that's like a quarter of the way filled with water and run with it, I could probably run at full speed. But if I were to fill that bucket all the way up with water and then try to run with it, I'm going to run, but I'm going to be running less than full speed, a lot less than full speed because it's a lot heavier, right? It's momentum against momentum. So your momentum is affected by the momentum of the weight in the bucket. And I'm trying to break this down like a simple way, but it's kind of like, and I'm not saying everybody took a physics class. I get that. I took physics, but it's physics, right? It's gravity, it's momentum, it's weight. Like, these are all things that you have to kind of put together. This is why this works so well for me, because I'm good with these things. But gravity, momentum, and weight are all things that affect volatility, right? Or movement. And so the more weight you add to Bitcoin, the more money you add to Bitcoin, the heavier it is and the harder it is to create volatility, right? And that's with any asset in general. So you can throw that across the board. This is why SPY has such a hard time really kind of moving, because it's so heavy, right? It's a very heavy stock. This is why people are like, hey, why would you buy SPY? Because you're not going to make any money, right? And that's just because it's a heavy stock. It's very heavy. It's been around for a long time. And Bitcoin over time is going to create that same scenario. Now, one more thing I wanted to add to this, just as a part of the conversation, and I think this is a key one right here, is just Bitcoin BLX, right? And a lot of people are sleeping on this, but this has real alpha in it. Now, this is just a theory, right? This is not this. There's nothing to solidify this thought process. So I want to be clear about that, just so people don't get this twisted and like, Will's saying blah blah blah. This is a theory. I want to see if it plays out, right? When we do anything as far as like engineering or anything else, you always theorize and you test, right? This is a back test theory that may or may not play out. There's no validity in this outside of a pattern that I found. But the validity that I do see here on this is when we're looking at strength, right? This is the one validity that I think everybody's fading here.
Well, I don't want to cut you out, guys, but if you want to enjoy well cooking and not look at the soybean chart, you guys know what to do, and that means smashing the like button, because we have 200 people watching on YouTube and we are not even at 100 likes. And Will has been cooking a lot, lots of information here being spilled here for free. If you guys are enjoying that, please consider. I do not want to brag more about it. We want to hear Will keep on cooking, but you guys know what to do. Otherwise, it's a soybean time.
Yeah. So some days I like to be entertaining. Other days I like to just spit alpha. I don't do it every day, because I feel like, if we're consistently spitting alpha every day, then, at that point, you guys will just stop showing up because you'll think you know everything. So I try to give you some days and not all. But and granted, keep in mind, this is literally like years of just watching this stuff and understanding it. But one of the key metrics I've noticed with BLX specific. Hold on, did we get to 100 likes? I'm gonna hate to lose focus because we're not at 100 likes, and then just fumble this whole conversation.
We're at 106 likes. You got it.
Okay.
They're still being stingy with the like button these days. We're watching you guys. We're watching you.
One thing I've noticed here with strength specifically is that you have these highs, right? Now, granted, you'll see there's a little bit of gap here. I know we can yada talk about it. I could probably even move it down a little bit to make people feel more comfortable, right? But the angle's still going to be the same. It's still going to raise it up. So like that little gap there didn't really matter. just think of it like every time, at least for now, right? This is a back test that can be invalidated later in the future. So you always have to think about that when you're. This is why you should never go fully in on anything, right? Go in with the thesis that this back check has worked and I can use it, and it may get invalidated at some point. Always go in with that thesis. But you've touched, you've touched, you've touched, right? And each one of these scenarios, more or less, let's bring it over to these touches, right? Now, granted, this one touched twice, but here you would have exited way too early. But if you were up here, right, relatively, once I start peaking in this area for strength, I need to probably get out. But one thing you'll notice here too is on these prior two markets, you got two tops, right? So you got one top there and one top there. Now, this wasn't really a top, but it was a good indication of a good pullback, right? And you could have started dialing in. And then you got your real top over here. Again, very similar scenario. So you got your top here, and then you got your good pullback right here, right? Roughly around like let's see here. What was that? About a 50%, 40% pullback, roughly, give or take, right? About a 40% pullback. So that's a pretty good pullback, by the way. That's a pretty good pullback. Over here, right? This was your Bitcoin top. Now here's where a lot of people got tricked, but you didn't get tricked because you didn't really get a lot more, right? This was your top, and even though you came down and swooped, and you could have bought into this, even if you would have exited here, you would have still been safe. There'd have been no reason to kind of come back in on the second top over here because your strength did not indicate that you were going to stay up there. It indicated that you lost a lot of your strength, right? So even though this did this, if you would have exited here, you still could have just held out in cash and then let it roll down eventually. Like you didn't have to re-enter for this. Now, granted, a lot of people, you left money on the table. Yeah, okay, you gamble a lot because that's gambling. Trying to play out patterns. This is your pattern play. Now, one thing you'll notice here is the bottom. I'm gonna give you guys real alpha. This is crazy, but the bottom of the bears on stochastic. This is where stochastic plays out. Have roughly been here, right? Again, more indication on the monthly time frame that I needed to be dialing in. I needed to be dialing in, and I needed to be dialing in. Now, do you guys see how I'm using confluence between stochastic, RSI, and bottoms and tops of markets? This is it. This is the play. This was your top here. This was your top here. This was your top before your first pullback. Again, this was your top before your first pullback. And then this was your top here, right? So over here, you didn't really get an indication for re-entry. Yes, you did swoop a little higher, but you still got your downtrend. Bear market. Bear market bottom, bear market bottom, bear market bottom. Based on stochastic, are we in a bear market, Tommy?
Based on stochastic, no. But I mean, people like to use stochastic to call tops just because it reaches an inflection point. When
Nope.
I mean, you can clearly see on high time frames, it spends a long time up there, a long time, and then that's because stochastic RSI in general is just a more reactive version of RSI. It's like the RSI of RSI of RSI of RSI.
Yeah, and this is the key to stochastic. Stochastic can stay overextended to the downside or upside. Never fade that it can stay on one of those sides for the cycle. Always understand though when you're at your bottom, right? So again, more indication that we were about to get absolutely wrecked right here. Right? Look at where stochastic was and look at where it goes historically. And you were all the way up here with all the signals telling you to get the hell out on this shoulder. And people were talking about this. And what happened to them? They got absolutely obliterated. That's what happened to them because they held this and they ate all this downside. You had 1, 2, 3 exits here. You had 3 doors that could have got you out yet you stayed complacent with the market was going to go higher. And this is the trap door that tricks a lot of people. This is why I was able to get out the top, because I had lots of signals that I was using that were all signaling the same thing. They were all signaling, hey, this is not the place to hold. You need to fully exit the market. Altcoins, everything. Now, granted, up here where we are now, a lot of people are like, oh, it's overextended. Look, over here, boom, and then look, boom, and then look, boom,
Okay.
and the market just keeps chatting higher as you stay elevated, right? Same thing over here. Boom, pull back, right? Boom, right here. And this, again, complacency shoulder. Look at that, right? You didn't hit your bottom yet. Once you get that bounce out the low, you're cooked. You're absolutely cooked. Because once you lose this much momentum on stochastic on the monthly high time frame, you're going to roll all the way into the bottom. And same thing here. And same thing here. And it'll probably be the same thing for this cycle when it comes back down. You'll probably be relatively in here for the next bear run. But I think we're going to stay elevated, maybe chop a little bit as we move this direction up toward the high here. And then at some point, we'll get this complacency move that'll just drop at some point. Now, granted, this one you got wrecked, right? But you did get indication here,
Oh,
right here, that you need to be out. And let this thing extend. Let it extend. Look, every one of these scenarios, look, 549 days. Right here. Over here. Same thing. 396 days. Look, right here. 365 days. At least let it go for 200 days before you start being like, all right, even though we're here, I can start dialing in. Let it go for at least 200 days. And then come back to the chart, look and see where you're at in price. You let it go for 200 days. You were probably somewhere in here. And then at that point, you could have started dialing in the low. It's really like I literally just gave people the diamond in the rough to entering and exiting the market across the board. Nobody can explain it like that. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Nobody has heard that. What are your thoughts there, Tommy, with a lot of this?
Sorry, my cat's ripping up my chairs as you ask me that question simultaneously. But yeah, no, I mean, I used to use stochastic RSI a lot more than I do now. But I do think the most actionable thing about it is when you get those crossovers back from like overbought or oversold territory. You know, that's typically you do see usually at the very least, like it comes back into that 50 level, and then maybe you get a retest higher. It might roll all the way back over though, and there's no guarantee. But I think the beauty of it too is, you know, you can look at the monthly chart, and I'm looking more at the candlesticks and stochastic RSI. That's the occasion where it dipped to the 50 and then ripped all the way back into overbought territory in the last bull run. You know, we had plenty of time to feel out that structure, you know, before you would have to buy back in. And I always think that, you know, it's way more favorable to buy opportunistic momentum rather than, you know, just chasing breakouts, because or really I think the opportunity cost is better when you're going after momentum versus just trying to pick a bottom, because the market's already shown you the structural break, right? Like you have a bit of a framework to work on rather than just, you know, waiting and hoping that, you know, stochastic RSI, for example, or momentum will find a bottom. But I do think the way this cycle is going to play out is going to be particularly interesting, because we are in overbought territory. I always say that's such a meme with RSI in general, because that's not even close to what overbought or oversold means. It just means the momentum is really strong. So, I mean, that looks to me, Will, like it's going to break above the green line, retest it, and then go to infinity. Like if I were trading that like an altcoin. But at the very least, it has a long way to go before we even tag that line. So there's a lot of room for Bitcoin here. And this is something we've talked about too. You know, we could have like a quote unquote super cycle, where the first leg is, occurring this year, maybe 2025. And then the second much bigger leg is occurring in like 2026, 2027, and 2028.
I would still think you'll get that failed swing on strength. Even if like here's the thing, if we were to trade like a super cycle, I would imagine it'd be something like this, right? And if it's going to be something like this, we're still going to get that same kind of fade swing to the low, a big bounce, and it's still going to come back down and wreck people anyway. Like you could have took your profits over here and still came back down and re-entered break even, right? Or you could have taken this to Valhalla, but it's a guess at best when you're kind of looking at this. But again, like if you're getting ready to retest highs, at least you know like where you're safe. Here's a better way to gauge RSI and stochastic. Where you're safe, as long as you're not touching this green line, and where you're not safe, right? And not safe means like basically price could extend for sure beyond here, retest, use support, break. And a lot of people may expect that. I would not expect anything above the previous high cycle, which would be this 100. I would think that if we're going to get anything like that, it's going to be more uh, kind of stopped out there, right? And then you're going to get like a failed swing there, maybe like a move back up and some kind of chop up here, like it's going to stay, and then it's going to come back into a bear market.
That would make sense, because even in that chop on RSI, Bitcoin's probably still making significant legs higher on the USD pair. In that scenario.
But this is what I would imagine if we were to play that. And then at that point, this whole pattern gets invalidated, and now you've got testing of the high. And now this trend could theoretically, that has been in a downtrend at that point, switch to more of an uptrend.
Right.
Moving from there, right? Kind of like how we look at the VIX, very similar type of pattern. How the VIX does these moves down and then these moves back up, going in from cycle to cycle every 4 years. That would mean that Bitcoin's going to do the same thing, which means Bitcoin will be a very, very attractive asset if it starts trading like this on strength, right? Which will eventually wreck people, but you got a long time period from there before that would happen. Once you
trends are all about conditioning people, not just in price but in behavior too. So that's when that's why when trends shift, it's usually extremely aggressive off the inflection point, because you have a lot of obviously forced participation at that point. Will, I wanted to pose a question to you as well as the entire panel here about the halving, because I mean at this point I want to say we're less than 10 days away from the halving, give or take. So I mean, I know I'm not expecting like necessarily a pump on the date of the halving, but how do we anticipate TradFi perceiving the halving as a catalyst here over the next few weeks and months? Because I don't really know that that's something that we've talked about. Like, what does TradFi think about the Bitcoin halving? It's obviously been, a reason to buy Bitcoin up to it. But do you guys think there's going to be any material changes with the way that they start viewing Bitcoin after the halving, especially with maybe inflation on the rise over the course of this year? It's kind of like the perfect timing for the Bitcoin halving in a sense. You have an asset that's going to become more scarce as inflation's going higher. Someone just said Pepe's moving bigly. Is that right? Oh, hell yeah, it is. Nice. Wow. Pepe just nice rip off the blow. We like to see that.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about like Bitcoin, this is my thesis right now. Like this is what I think will play. Everybody will be talking about the halving. Oh, Tommy just went to go trade some Pepe. Awesome. This will be the play right here. Is probably for markets to rip to the high and then probably come back down to the low going into the halving. Everybody's like, oh, the big dip's coming, and they're talking about price coming back into this range, when in reality we've already got consolidation there. And a lot of people will also be like, oh, it's coming back down to this range, to the 50K range. But look, a lot of people are fading again. Just the strength consolidation you have right here. You have so much consolidation right here. There's no reason to go back below 60. As much as people keep talking about it, it's not a realistic scenario. This consolidation right here is telling that at this point you probably have support here regardless. So I don't know if you were there for that, Tommy, but
No, I was listening. I was getting my pre-workout drink.
so I was talking more about this right here. This is consolidation. This is support, right? And if you use that here and you were to take this and put it here, you would know that you have enough support to stay relatively above the 50K zone that everybody keeps talking about that needs to be retested.
Fortunately, I am already mega long Pepe, so I did not have to get off camera to go chase that. But yeah, no, that's
Pepe pumping.
look. So it does look like Coinbase is probably posturing to list Pepe. I mean, if they are doing futures, if there's anything like breadcrumbs on the exchange, I think that would make sense. But we talked about this for a long time, and maybe we can kind of pivot the conversation a little bit here. If Pepe is in fact getting some love from Coinbase, but these major meme coins getting Coinbase listings is probably only a matter of time. That's something that we've been saying for a while. And the two most likely candidates to be, that have kind of already been like anointed as the new memes of this cycle, you have Pepe and you have Dog with Hat. And Pepe is the big meme coin on ETH, and WIF is the big meme coin on Sol. So, I mean, they're more or less like unliquidatable levered longs on the base layer. I mean, you kind of can't go wrong with either one, in my opinion, but not at all surprised to see that Pepe
I'm going to switch screens real quick, Tommy.
For sure.
Give me just a second.
Going back on your screen?
Yeah. So there's actually some alpha on Pepe right now. I think a lot of people aren't really paying attention to, and I think it's huge, especially with ETH.
You gonna cook with the frog?
Yeah. You just throw me the chart back real quick, and then you can.
Man, I love Mr. Smith. He has such a very good subtle comments.
You guys want to know something funny?
Good stuff.
I have a friend who, I mean, I don't want to call him like an insider, but every time he buys something specifically, I'm like, what do you know? What do you know? And a few days ago, he told me he bought Pepe, and now it makes sense, of course. I'm like, well, there you go.
Tell me the chart real quick, Tommy.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So what do we think we see here? Go ahead and tell me what you think you see there.
Where exactly?
So again, for me, it's all about depicting the pattern.
Will,
right?
what do you think you see there, brother?
Look, what I see here, okay, and you know where this is going. What I see here is that. And a lot of people may or may not know what that means, but that means a lot, right? So like if we were to look at something like this, hold on 1 second, let me pull this up.
I have something to say to that when you are finished, Will, to Pepe pump.
Yeah, let me just grab this photo just so I can add it in here. So copy image. So for those of you curious, you can't copy it here. No. All right. Anyways, because this is next screener, obviously. The point being is what this is called a pennant, right? And what you get is what they call a flagpole, right? Which is price moving into a range. And then you get price retest, right? So you have your low retest, your high retest, your low retest, your high retest, your low retest, your high retest, your low retest, and now your high retest. Now the breakout could occur here, or it could come back one more time, and it's going to move up, right? That's basically it at the end of the day. What I would look for, now a lot of people will tell you to average whatever your high to low structure is within the pennant. So your biggest move, so like maybe from here to here, right? And then expectations would be something like this, right? Now that's without overextensions or anything like that. Granted, this can go a lot higher than that, right? Obviously, because it's a meme coin. But this is what this looks like to me, man. Like this looks like a pennant play that's going to really push. Like, what do you got here? Yeah, you're looking at easy 2x there.
It's a clear pennant that will essentially lead to high prices. But with all of these pennants, what they usually like to do, is that they like to make people that it's a continuation pattern. Then they do a fake out to stop them
like
out,
this.
and then they push it higher. Exactly.
Man, haven't they chopped up the Pepe longers enough, man?
No, this is actually he's actually right. That even though a lot of pennants show this, like from like a TA book, it's actually normally like this. It usually comes in, retests the lows, and then rips.
It also depends on a time frame, because like if you were to get this pennant like hourly time frame, then continuation quick enough, because not many people are quick enough to make the decisions. But if you see this on a daily time frame, that's when the sentiment is being built, day by day. And usually these on the daily time frame have the fake out downwards. Also with the futures listing, I do not view that necessarily as bullish, because futures are usually there to tame the price, and futures listing on a Coinbase to me is exactly that, where they will locally pump it, but in my opinion we will see further, like in my opinion this whole pump gets faded right here, most likely. Maybe it goes slightly higher to take some stops, but in my opinion, it just gets faded, sends lower, makes people feel like, oh, it's over, and then it rips higher. I'm very bullish on Pepe heading way higher in the cycle. I'm just not sure it's coming from here. And I think the same goes for Tao. It's like, we just had the Binance listing, and look how faded it's getting, the pump. And that's also,
I haven't even seen.
That's also because most of the time, especially unless you're gonna get like all exchange listings at once, if you are getting an exchange listing, there and then there and then there, well, the final boss is Binance. And once you list on Binance, there really is nothing to beat, because that's the final boss of listings. And yeah, and once that happens, what usually happens afterward is that the market needs to sell off for some time, and because like you are in that community of the token or company or whatever, and then you achieve some milestone, then you achieve another milestone, your community is growing, you get listed there, but after you list on Binance, what is the next milestone? You just, in this higher time frame, like, you achieved all the milestone, you beated the final boss, and now there is a time for the pullback, and then the next battle begins, right, in the next higher time frame. Like, so I think that's kind of the road here for both.
Tommy, did you see how I did all this before I threw a fib, and the fib pullback pulls right into the range of where I pointed out the support at? It's literally like dead on.
It's basically hinting that Coinbase has a spot listing lined up for Pepe, which I think is the more significant thing to take away. Even if we do break down, it is basically communicating. I'm assuming this information is true. I'm trusting the comment section, but if we did, if Coinbase did list a futures product for it, I agree with you regarding futures jackets, but I also think it probably means that they're teeing up a spot listing as well here in the not so distant future. And when coins get spot listings on Coinbase, I always say, I mean, people don't like to hear like when you should sell or whatever, but I mean, liquidity events. Take advantage of liquidity events. Study the Bonk Coinbase listing. Everybody thought when Binance happened that it was over, even though price didn't really move. But you have to pay attention to how price moves around these listings. And when Coinbase listed Bonk, it went up about 200 or 300% within 24 to 48 hours. That was a liquidity event, and it went down 90%. So, I mean, that's kind of what I've always been looking for with Pepe and WIF is like, when are these liquidity events coming? The first one, I mean, if we're really going to have a meme super cycle, like really have a meme super cycle, you're probably going to get your first liquidity event from a Coinbase listing. And then the second one is going to, if your meme is good enough, the second liquidity event will probably be a Robinhood listing if your meme is good enough. But, I don't think that
Robinhood lists, it will
gonna get
pump in the bull.
yes,
It'll pump in the bull. Like you're talking like just, I don't know what's up with TikTokers and Robinhood, but those two go hand in hand. TikTokers know how to pump shit. So,
well, I just remember it's just so easy to buy a little bit on Robinhood. We saw it with Doge. It's just like it's so reflexive.
And friends
Because, I mean,
telling friends they need a little up in their portfolio.
Yeah, well, think about how many Americans have access to a Robinhood account versus how many Americans have access to, any exchange where you could buy Pepe. How many Americans have access to like Uniswap without having to jump through a ton of hurdles? And I mean, like Robinhood is the liquidity event for a meme coin. We saw it with Doge. So, I mean, if you can get that, yeah, your meme coin's getting sent to Valhalla. But I think before that, you'll probably see Coinbase list these memes, and that will be a short-term liquidity event. I'd probably take some profit myself personally if we got a Coinbase listing here and the price pump 200 to 300%. Seems like it would make sense, but also, I also think Pepe and WIF are probably the two most likely memes right now to get that Robinhood listing eventually. So I guess we'll see. But that was kind of rambly, but
have you seen the new candles they got for the chart? Not the ones from yesterday.
Elaborate.
No.
You want me to show you? I'll show you.
Yeah, go ahead. You could take the chart. I'm gonna switch up.
They have a TPO function.
Really?
Yes. And you can change all this shit. You can pour high, pour low, single prints.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think that's a PogChain move from TradingView because they saw that people were flooding to different platforms.
Yeah.
And pay subscriptions there, and now it's included, so you can have it all at once.
Yeah, where was
they acted quickly.
It's nice because you're getting more value though too in TradingView, which is really nice.
Look at that. That's sick.
Yeah, I mean that tells me that shit's going way up.
Shit's going way up. Okay, we need token of TradingView. The view, ticker view.
I mean, these are usually decent lows if you just buy color. But
I feel like that can get kind of dangerous too.
Definitely not how you're supposed to use it at all. But
yeah, I was gonna say.
No, that's definitely not how. And then if you zoom out, it does that. But you can't really get good. I was trying to look at it on like the daily. If it'll go.
Listen, guys, maybe last thought of the stream, but what I want to entertain is that I think the market's really being like locally depressed. It's not the depression of like October or September and August 2023, but I think it's the closest to it since then right now, because most alts really, like nearly every fucking alt has been going down for the past months, quite a lot to be honest. Many alts have not been going up since the beginning of the year, and many have been going either range or down since end of last year. And I sense it from people. I sense it from this range. And like, we gotta be honest, most people are not just Bitcoin holders or Ether holders. Most people are, because the current world is so fucked up that people are looking to make some wealth in quick meme flips. That's just the way it is. And And you can sense it. You can sense it that people are getting desperate here. And I do not see a cycle top when people are desperate at the top.
Do you guys want to see the perfect example of how manipulation is a feature, not a bug? But also, this is a good reason why I'm bullish as well. Tucker, if you could pull up Bitcoin FDUSD.
What is it?
Bitcoin FDUSD.
Give me the letters.
I just did.
FD. FD.
What do you mean? I know. I know.
BTC,
What do you mean? Like type in
BTC,
Bitcoin.
BTC.
That's what I'm talking about.
FDUSD.
That's what I'm talking about.
And look at the origin of the contract. Study bullish manipulation.
Oh no.
Jesus, what is this?
This is the stable coin that Binance rolled out last summer.
After BUSD.
Yeah, after BUSD went like out the door. But
Jesus.
I think it's funny, for one, just because you can clearly see there's some impact here in relation to price, but also if you look at Bitcoin perps on Binance, their perp contract for Tether, I mean, it started a little bit sooner within the cycle, but you can see kind of a similar relationship. This is some alpha I found yesterday. But if you scroll back to the beginning of Binance perps, when did that start? Well, what do you know?
What do you know?
Manipulation.
Don't fade the cartel.
Don't fade the cartel. They did it again. But
that's actually interesting. That's a good one to share. And I mean, guys, have you appreciated this alpha that we shared today? Well, consider smashing the like button because
Easy.
Bitcoin looks good, man. I mean, I could just as easily see it chopping for a few more weeks, but we could be putting in that Godzilla candle to the upside here pretty soon just as well. I don't think I really feel like it's only a matter of time. And I look at some things like these things are only going to serve as a tailwind ultimately, but like, look at the Bitcoin ecosystem right now, blowing up. And it's really still very much in the nascent stages of the rally, in the sense that people are still people don't even want to use the Bitcoin network to transact. They probably use it once and they're like, I never want to have to do this again, which fair play. I felt the same way. But also I think people in general are still pretty lazy in order to, actually move over to the Bitcoin network. And we're finally seeing, I think, more people actively, doing so because you have a meme coin that's been popping off. And I think that only is going to serve to benefit the top ordinals collections, obviously. And, we talked about stacks, I'm sure yesterday as well, which looks absolutely fantastic. But,
Dude,
I think
look at this thing, man. Look at this thing. Look at this thing.
What is that from?
Just right here. Just starting right here through here. And it's literally, look at this. I just drop this puppy on here. I mean, what are we talking about here?
It's going to zero.
Look at that thing, man.
No, man, my puppets are going to zero, man. That's the joke. They belong at zero.
Well, more zeros behind the one.
Talking about. What'd you say?
I said more zeros behind the one. That's about it. I don't know how I feel about BRCs, man. We talked about it this morning.
Oh no, not the.
I told you kind of the complication with the conversation.
Yeah,
it's a little hard one. You got? Did you have something you want to throw in there, Jerome Powell?
no, it's just it was just making a note to the week Tucker's got there on the listing announcement.
Gotcha.
I did
Yeah.
I did see today that somebody is projecting 3 rate cuts this year. What do you think about that, Jerome?
Look,
I did not.
Prince,
I did not approve it.
we're gonna print. It doesn't matter how many rate cuts we get. We're gonna print right through it. All right. Now, can I have my ice cream? We're printing straight through everything. I mean, $1.3 trillion. Look, I told people when we were sitting at like 60K Bitcoin, and I'm gonna send you some text later, Tommy. Like I messaged a couple people. I was like, "This is where you long Bitcoin," and they were like, "No, bro, we're going 50K." That was literally the bottom of this overall move. But what you call it? I think a lot of people underestimated the $1.2 trillion spending bill. They just completely underestimated it. And I always bring these things up because it's like, bro, like the government's showing you their hand. They literally turned their cards around and said, "Look, I got a handful of aces. Check it out." And then they turned it back around, and you're like, "There's no way you can win. I got all twos, bro." Like you've lost the plot. They literally showed you they're gonna beat you, and you still wanted to bet against them. Like, just go all in on a short, man. Watch how fast that gets taken out. Like, I love the macro bears who talk about lower but are not willing to short. Absolutely not willing to short. They're like, I'm going to buy when it's lower. Then short. If you think it's going lower, short. Put your money where your mouth is.
They're just grabbing the engagement, and you know that well.
They do want that big juicy engagement. I saw a really interesting headline last week where it was, I think it was like 70% of news consumption is typically driven by negativity. Isn't that insane to think about?
Yeah.
I know we talk about like how bullish influencers always do really well in crypto because, you know, there is a lot to be hopeful about, but that was a pretty shocking statistic for me to read. And also I think speaks, I mean, that's kind of like very indicative of a feeling of disbelief in a sense, right? That a rally or any positivity could be happening. I think people's outlook on the country is still pretty negative, even despite what the market's done over the last year.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. Participation is very I would say underexposed. Um, the a lot of people are mad about a lot of political shit and blah blah blah. A lot of people think everything's rigged and that they don't have a chance, and so they don't even try. And other people are starting to open up and understand, like, hey, they're showing us the hand. Let's just play the hand they're showing us because it's obvious, right? And everybody sits there and thinks that like left curving, somebody showing you their winning hand is the right play. It makes no sense at all. It's like, bro, like you're literally getting told, hey, we're going to rob you tomorrow night at 12 a.m. So make sure you're home. And then you're like, they're not going to rob me. I'm going to be home waiting for them. And then they're going to come in and rob you. Like, they told you what they were going to do. They showed you their hand, $1.2 trillion spending bill. The economy is going up, people. Like, I don't know what else to say. Inflation doesn't matter to them. They don't care about inflation. Like, I know it's a consistent, well, inflation. Look at oil. Why do you think oil is not dumped? Because inflation's going to come back. We're going to rate cut into this. They'll probably get inflation by whatever way that they skew the numbers down to 2%. And then at some point, inflation is going to get so extreme that they can't, skew the numbers anymore. We're going to get inflation coming back. And then at that point, we're going to get rate hikes again. And then we'll probably get the big crash. It'll be the 2008 scenario later, not sooner.
Tucker, I've seen you chart YAI. What do you think of that?
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of YAI. I think it's good AI narrative. I know they they have some bullish fundamental propaganda. Their founders are all Fortune 500 guys or something, and they have some real product you can actually use. I don't even know what it is, honestly, but I mean, the bleed's unfortunate, obviously, but I mean, I think it's either bottom, like it has to be bottom right here. Like you can't go. It's over if you
Oh,
go
is
below
this
here,
dime?
man. Huh?
Is this dime?
Yai.
It's yai. You're gonna say yai.
I
Wow.
think it's.
Or,
I think
or are
it's
you gonna say yai?
there you go.
This
This
is a
is
good,
yai.
this is a good
Fucker,
question,
pull
guys.
up dime, bro. Pull up dime. Give me
It's
the alpha on
over. Will, it's over.
Altcoin narrative.
dime.
It's
What
completely
altcoin
over.
narrative
It
do you
is
guys
cooked,
think are
bro.
gonna?
It's cooked.
It's so fucking
Wait,
cooked.
what do you think of altcoin narratives if Bitcoin continues sideways?
Bitcoin eco, it's going to run, should keep running into the halving. That's the most obvious narrative, I think. JPEGs probably do well too.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think you're probably just playing hot ball and money rotations.
Yeah.
Bro, no cap. I almost dropped my entire bag when dime went to like $8. I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't think this shit's going anywhere. And it just bled from there. It never stopped bleeding.
Dude,
All
it
the
is
modularity tokens are just being like incinerated by VCs. Look at TIA.
dude,
It's bad.
incinerated.
Modular Madman. Yeah.
It literally has to
Modular
be
broke.
bottomed here.
Somebody's got to put a bottom in on that thing.
Yeah.
It's
Too bad they're all
$8.
dumping. And everybody's staked, so the float is lower. And it takes time to get your bags unstaked. So it's just like this perpetual, whoever is liquid on TIA is just perpetually dumping into a pretty illiquid book. So price can keep sliding. But I mean, I would just wait for TIA to paint some sort of like 4-hour or 1-day double bottom. You know, that's probably going to be the low. But until then, it looks like it's just perpetual bleed.
But when you say,
Alts
Tommy,
look like a perpetual bleed right now.
Yeah, they do.
That's the depression.
Wouldn't you say though, Tommy, there's just better alpha playing something else other than
For
modular?
sure.
Coins?
Yeah, for sure. Look at
Or now. Eventually they're going to get bid again, though, right? Like they were the hottest thing. They were the bee's knees in Q4. I imagine that sentiment will probably return to some degree.
I mean,
But right
Tia
now,
was, but that was just Tia. That's it. Nothing else.
our VC scams bottoms against memes.
I love look at Aptos, man. I had a friend who longed the Pico Schmiko top of that thing with size, and he is still long.
Oh no.
No.
Do you remember when everybody was talking about this coin like last week?
Yes.
I remember when everyone was talking about it in January 2023.
Yeah.
That was because it was like the only thing running. Yeah.
That was an epic pump. There were a lot of like conditions that led to that pump occurring, though. Like people, including myself, you know, I've tried to overlay the Aptos PA on other airdropped tokens before as well. But I mean, that scenario was super unique because you had basically 6 months of VC hedges built up in that downtrend, and then a brand new year came along. So and then Bitcoin pumped off the low, and all of a sudden everybody was sidelined off that low for the most part, and VCs just rapidly allocated to it and squeezed the crap out of hedges. So, I mean, that's why it ran up so aggressively. The conditions were literally perfect for it to do so.
Hey,
Yeah.
can we pull up Uniswap? I want to see what the SEC actually did to it.
Oh man,
I'm looking for support, boys. I'm looking for support.
that looks like ETH's test pump back in like 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
DeFi probably needs more time.
For sure needs more time. Yeah.
I mean, this whole dump is due to the SEC because I think otherwise DeFi looks solid. You know, AIF looks great, but this is obviously, you know, this SEC shenanigans.
Hey, draw the support across the highs there, too.
Are you
Tucker.
feeling protected, Jackus?
Oh man, we are here to protect you, but we didn't say who are we protecting, and it's not the consumers.
I would say you're kind of coming into a support range. It's probably a good place to start.
Now listen,
Yeah.
now listen. This support, if it gets hit, it goes lower. This is not a
It
support.
does. It
No,
deviates and it goes lower.
yeah, yeah. If people don't get it, but these obvious supports always get blown through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be temporary though. It'll be temporary. I did want to point out. Somebody asked a question: how can 1.2 trillion spending bill account for trillions of dollars added to markets since that news? So what it does essentially, think of it like this: you got to left curve the overall thought, because you're thinking like, okay, it's 1.2 trillion. It's how does that account for trillions? Because it's not trillions. It accounts for allowing, we'll say, participants to feel more comfortable about spending capital, because they know that liquidity is being injected into the economy. So they know that the economy will be floated, and because the economy will be floated, the number of investments can actually exceed the number of amount of, whatever the spending bill is. So even though 1.2 trillion is the spending bill, which they can spend on whatever, that bill was created for, at that point, that some of that liquidity will seep out into markets. People are anticipating that, market participants are anticipating that, and they're probably putting their monies more towards those sectors specifically. But those sectors will create revenue, which will create new investors, which can put that money wherever they want. Which, it's kind of like an outflow. Like you can't look at it from like a static number and be like, okay, well, it's only 1.2 trillion. You got to look at it from like, will participants feel more comfortable or less comfortable in a cush environment or non-cush environment? When you're seeing QE, people think comfortability, and when people think comfortability, they'll invest, and sometimes they'll even overinvest, which means you can exceed the number of money that's going into the economy, essentially. I know that was long-winded. I didn't mean to cut everybody off, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Just some food
Yeah,
for thought.
we should wrap up probably.
Yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up now, guys. We've been cooking for about an hour and a half. It's been a great show. We let Will really cook today. We got some news on Pepe, and I really feel like we're probably reaching the point of, I mean, I don't want to use inflection because that's almost too obvious. I'm sure I could come up with a better word, but it's time to make a decision, right? For Bitcoin, put up or shut up. You're at range highs again. You've continuously been making higher lows. Are you going to give us that Godzilla green candle, or are you going to go back to range lows? And if that happens, I mean, that's probably total altcoin death if that happens. So preferably not that. We'll see what she's got for us though, for sure. The Bitcoin halving is less than 2 weeks away, and we also
8 days.
have 8 days. Wow, 8 days, man. 8 days. Real quickly, I'm going to plug our courses, guys. Our Bitcoin, or our BB Academy. It's something that we've been working very, very hard on. If education is something that interests you from the entire team, we really worked hard on getting these out for you guys. I mean, literally eight or 9 months in the works, at a very discounted price for a very short period of time. I mean, I would not count on these prices being available after the halving, quite frankly, because we are seriously giving them to you at a huge discount. So I would pounce on that now if that's something that interests you, because I'm dead serious when I say that we're going to raise the prices substantially in a very short period of time. But yeah, you can get great insights from everybody on the team. You saw Will cook today. You can get a lot more of his insights on how how he uses these momentum indicators with price within his system and everything in regards to that as well. But yeah, to also touch on our programming, guys, we of course will be back for another episode of Market Check tomorrow morning. Typical start time around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will hear from all of the guys. I think Max will be back from Florida tomorrow as well. He is flying home today. I know he's excited to cook for you guys as well. So another great episode of Market Check coming tomorrow. Like I said, we let Will cook today a lot. We looked at Pepe, we looked at meme coins, a little bit at Bitcoin as well, but we had a lot of fun, right? Of course, as well, we have Market Talk, which is our flagship show, a Twitter space hosted by the legendary King Wabi. He always does an exceptional job on those shows. Got great guests on, talk about meme coins, about macro, everything in between. So definitely make sure to tune in for that. And we will communicate the timing of these shows always through our Twitter. So make sure to stay subscribed, not just for when, we announce those spaces, but also when we go live, so you can be notified. But that's it from us, guys. That's it from us. We will be back, like I said, tomorrow. Giga Chads, we will see you for the afternoon bell stream later today. And yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is going to do what it's going to do, but it is creeping closer to a decision every day, it does feel like. So excited to get some resolution from this range. But thanks for tuning in again, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, and have a great rest of your Thursdays. Thanks again.